This is the player I'm going to get mad at you guys about, just so, you know, steel yourself.
Failure.
You take it very personally.
You shame me, guys. You shame me.
Uh-oh.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
So I'm just going with my heart over my head because my head is stupid anyway.
It's a sight for sore eyes.
Oh, that's just dumb, though.
I've never been proven more wrong in my life so quickly and so dramatically. Recording July 18th, 2022. You are listening to this on July 20th, 2022. It is your best friends, the 6th podcast of the year. I am Snap Wilson. We have Robococo, MJ Tolliver. And today we are going to discuss, in the words of Becky, the mediocre morass of the bottom half of the WNBA, specifically the 6 to 11 seeds. We're talking the Atlanta Dream, Dallas Wings, Los Angeles Sparks, Minnesota Lynx, New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury, all within 2 games of each other, all fighting for those last 3 spots in the playoffs. But first, how was your week, guys? How's everybody doing? MJ, talk to me.
Little up and down, but I'm good. Having a little Dallas Wing situation. Wink, wink, if you know what I mean.
You got a little Dallas Wing situation? Well,
Yeah.
what's the situation? Talk to me. What's that about?
You go ahead and speak about it subliminally. About might call your ex-girlfriend late.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, your current girlfriend's kind of a mess right now. I mean, she's feisty, but she's, I don't know.
Yeah,
she's walking out the door with the wrong clothes on.
She became the Dallas Wings.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Very sorry to hear it. Becky, how's your week been?
It's okay. I got kind of lost in the metaphors there. I'm not really sure I understood the conversation.
You know, I don't think I understood what I was talking about either. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm lost. Well, first off, we will do our usual 6th player report. A lot of good performances over this past week, specifically Rachel Banham, 2 very good performances off the bench against Phoenix. She also made the 6th player report last week against the Aces. She had a really good game. Well, she doubled up this week, 24 points against Phoenix, the Mercury, 8 from 14 from the floor, 6 from 9 from 3, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, followed it up with 24 points against Dallas, 8 for 12 from the floor, 4 for 6 from 3. She's been playing really well of late. So see if she can keep that up. I'm informed that we need to mention Rebecca Gardner. I think it was her game against the Sparks, 18 points, 8 from 11 from the floor, 10 rebounds, 4 offensive boards. Tira McCowan against the Seattle Storm. That's a good team to have as a game against as a front court player. 18 points, 8 from 14 from the floor, 10 rebounds, 6 offensive boards, 2 block shots. Brianna Jones against the Fever. I almost think Fever performances shouldn't count, but she did well. 17 points, 5 for 7 from the floor, 7 for 7 from the line, 2 steals. Sammy Whitcomb against the Aces, 17 points, 6 for 7 from the floor, 5 for 6 from 3, 3 assists. And Tiffany Mitchell against the Lynx, 18 points, 7 for 12 from the floor, 3 assists. I think Brianna Jones has to unquestionably be the favorite for 6th player of the year so far, but we've had a lot of really good performances to go along with that. We have Jess Shepard out in Minnesota, who Cheryl seems to be trying to get some award or another. She's always an early sub in. Brittany Sykes for the Sparks has played really well. She just recently came off the bench again. Who knows what Fred Williams is doing with that lineup out there? It always seems to be changing from game to game. Of course, Han Shu, now known as Shu Han on the WNBA website, to hopefully convey people what her surname is and what her family name is. And Rebecca Gardner, who are out in Chicago, also playing extremely well off the bench, as she has all year. All defense type of defense, occasional explosions of scoring. She's shooting very well, getting to the line, just really incredible year. And we'll probably have a lot to say about her in our emptying the bench segment, so we'll save that. On to weak sauce. Talking seeds 6 through 11. I figure the best way to go about this is via the standings. We can talk about them in order. And we will start with MJ's ex-girlfriend. Current girlfriend? Who knows? The Dallas Wings, currently at 11 and 14. They are 5th in offensive rating, as you might expect them to be with all that talent. They're 7th in defensive rating. They're the best net rating of the teams. Actually, you know what? I think I looked at the wrong thing. Well, okay, they're tied with Atlanta, so we'll just talk Dallas first.
Well, Atlanta has the tiebreaker.
Has the tiebreaker. All right. Well, we'll talk about them next.
We can talk Wings first.
All right, we'll talk Wings first. Best net rating among the 6 teams we're going to talk about, minus 0.8. All the teams are in the negative in both win-loss record and in net rating. It is quite a mediocre morass for those final spots. I guess this kind of has to do a little bit with parity more than anything else. I think everybody's just kind of close together outside of the top 5. And that's just kind of the way that this has wound up this year. Makes for an exciting playoff finish in any case. So yeah, Dallas, do we think that they're the stats are right and they're the best of this lot? Or do we think that they're one of the other 5 teams? It might be better than them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's right.
It depends on 2 words. Alicia Gray.
Really? Okay. That was I was thinking of another 2 words, but go on. Why do you say that?
What's your 2? You already know.
Well, I mean, they kind of go as Enrique goes, right? If she's on, then they usually have a really good chance to win. And when she's bricking it and things are not going her way, then they also have to overcome like her putting up a lot of shots that she shouldn't.
Right. And that's why I say Alicia Gray, because they need to play through Alicia and let her have, I don't want to put it a wrong way where Enrique catch the pie and it's like, she put a cap on me. Like, no, it's not put a cap on you, but it's put a cap. Like, it's basically facilitate the team. I need Alicia Gray to facilitate this team. And they're still, doing what they're doing with Satu. And then here's Enrique, and it's just like, well, I can, get everything off the best of my ability, so I'm going. But she needs to be, you know what? Let me not say cap. She needs to be contained in a sense, and they need to have more of a focused execution as opposed to her wild style, which works in some games but doesn't work. It won't work going into the playoffs. It won't work trying to maintain this seed, even though you said, Becky, they're under Atlanta. So because of the tiebreaker. So I just think they need more control. That's really all. Because everything else has been coming along. Like, everybody else around Enrique has been growing, if you really pay attention to it. But it's that she's still like combustible at times. And I love her, but it's like she's either gonna bomb the other team or she's gonna bomb her own team. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Okay. Becky, how do you feel about the Wings?
I think they're probably accurate in the standings, or I think they're probably the best of this group. I would say, like, at the beginning of the season, I would not have been surprised to see the Wings at 6 or 7, but not with this bad of record, because there was such a distinct break between the 1 through 5 and the 6 through 11. So I think they've been kind of underperforming what they could be doing, but I still think they're the best of this group.
I think they have.
I mean, there's some hopeful things. Like, I think they've got Tierra McCowan more worked into the lineups, and she's had some good games recently.
Yeah.
So that's a positive thing to see. Satu being out has not been a positive thing to see, but it kind of feels like the Marique thing is, we've kind of maybe last year was like the ceiling of what Marique could do,
right?
Because they haven't really taken I don't know. They just this season just doesn't feel it doesn't feel like they took kind of a step that I feel like they could have.
Yeah, I agree with that
Better.
a bit. The coaching worries me. It's Tierra who has kind of stepped up a bit. Also oddly worries me in a way because I'm not sure that I trust her, especially in the playoffs as a playoff option. I think she's going to have to rely a lot on calls to succeed, and I just don't see that happening. They have definitely the highest floor of any team. They haven't really been super blown out. I think their worst loss was 99-68 against Connecticut. But beyond that, it's they're at least, you know, mildly okay. There's a couple of other games like 14, 15 point losses, something like that. But everybody else on this list has been blown out to a much more substantial degree. And I think even a few of the teams have played better than Dallas has played at their best for stretches. We'll get to that in a little bit. So they have the remaining record. I did a little bit of mathy research for this, just looking at the remaining records for each of these teams, opponent records. The Dallas is third in opponent winning percentage, or third lowest, I should say, in opponent winning percentage going forward, with a 471 percentage. They face Chicago twice. They face the Aces once, Washington once, and then they get Indiana a couple of times on the opposite end of that, and then the rest is against the mediocre Morass, as we're calling them. So they also have 6 games on the road, 5 games remaining at home. So not a big split there in either direction. I get the feeling that they will make it, but I worry a little bit because I think some of the teams that are lower in the standings are capable of playing better basketball if they, you know, can get it together. They're also all capable of playing much worse basketball. So it remains to kind of be seen how they go. I worry about their position a little bit. I do think that 7th is not where I would be comfortable being right now if I were in their shoes. So we'll see. The team that is actually ranked ahead of them because of the tiebreaker, the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Dream is about what you expect. They actually have the worst offensive rating in the league, even below the Indiana Fever, which really surprised me. But they have a very good defense. They're 4th in defensive rating. Their net rating among these 6 teams is actually 4th. They're 9th in the league total at minus 3.2. So they're playing, if you look at it from a win-loss perspective, they're probably playing a little bit above their heads. But that also doesn't surprise me because they keep scores low. And if you keep scores low, then you kind of have a chance to outkick your own coverage. It's a little bit easier if you're overmatched, but you can keep things close, especially if you have a good coach, which it seems like they do in Tanisha Wright. This team worried me from the outset, just for the very reason that they don't have any offense. And it's kind of hard to get those cheap wins if the other team is playing poorly, and you know you get a little chance to shoot some threes and get one of those surprise victories. They don't get a lot of those, but the defense has been holding up really nicely as the season has gone on. So they're getting it the other way. They're beating a lot of bad teams pretty soundly because they're able to hold them off and sneak in those wings, and then occasionally they play a good team and they get blown out a lot. And that's mostly why they have a net rating of what they do. In their favor, they have the easiest schedule from a win-loss perspective for the rest of the season. It is at 458, 127 and 150, so 458 for the rest of the season. 6 games on the road, 5 games at home. They have the Aces coming up, next game as a matter of fact, and then another one later in the season. They face Seattle once, and I think that's it for good teams. So that's pretty good for them. Only 1 game remaining against Indiana for the really bad teams. They got 2, closed out with 2 at New York. They got a couple against the Sparks. I think they're making the playoffs. I don't think it's the best for the team overall in the future to make the playoffs, but you know, as a friend of the pod, ENFP Dream Fan has said it's more fun to watch them play games that matter than games that don't. But it sucks that there's no chance for Aaliyah Boston to come right down the road to Atlanta for them.
Beyond versatile.
Yeah.
Beyond versatile.
Yeah. So yeah, up and down season, Ryan Howard has exceeded all expectations. She's starting to struggle a little bit because I think she just doesn't have as much help as she needs, but a lot of good, nice surprises. Ari McDonald has taken a huge step forward this year. She's been terrific. You know, Christy Wallace came out of nowhere to at least be a decent rotation player. Cheyenne Parker has had a career year for them. At some point we have to do like a study of how players have performed after pregnancy, because it seems to me there's a trend where they just play great in the year following having children. So yeah, I think they're going to make it. They'll be one of those bottom 3, 6, 7, 8 seeds, and they're going to have a hard time in the playoffs because you need to be able to score in the playoffs. Becky, what do you think of the Atlanta Dream?
I agree they're going to make it. I have the Wings and the Dream as kind of like, I'm pretty sure they're going to make it. And despite how close the records are, and particularly for the Dream, like they just came out hotter than you expected and were able to, against a more difficult schedule,
at least hang in there, right?
And now they have a little bit easier schedule to go down the stretch. I agree that, you know, maybe it's not the best thing for them to go to the playoffs this year, but there's a couple things weighing against that, in that it's a young group, and giving them playoff experience and getting to the playoffs this year is actually not just one single elimination game, but a little mini series is going to be valuable for this group. And I think just the entire like 180 degrees turned around the vibe of this team. They are now a team that I think they could attract fun people in free agency, right? I think they're now a team that they've got a good coach. They seem to have just great chemistry together that a player would want to come to, where absolutely, yeah, I don't think the Dream, you know, were able to attract many people last year, right? Because who would want to?
Yeah, it looked like a mess, right?
Yeah, join the mess. So the writing of the ship is so exciting for this team that I, you know, maybe Aaliyah Boston's more exciting than all of that, but good for them. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to raise a little hell in there. Keep it interesting.
I hope not. MJ, give us your Dream thoughts.
My Dream thoughts are that I'm petty, but I think it was the draft or just thereafter where I said that their floor is the lottery and their ceiling is the playoffs.
Despite the audio cutting out, you're saying that you told us so.
I think they're definitely set to. Yeah, I had them, you know, lottery floor.
Yeah, you were right. They made making the playoffs.
And that was because I was high on Ryan Howard. But yeah, so if they're making the playoffs and they have health, then I think they can surprise somebody. So that's just really my take. Just as long as Ryan Howard is doing what she can do, like to the best of her ability, you know, dropping at least 20 plus, like she can't get contained, but I see them making noise and potentially upsetting somebody in the first round, depending on who it is. If it's one of the stronger teams, then no. Which is it'll probably all be stronger teams, to be honest. But
yeah, she struggled a little bit of late. She hasn't dropped 20 in a while. I think it's been over 10 games now.
Yeah.
But
right,
a few good games along the way, and then a few like just seriously horrendous shooting nights. Yep. That's basically how it's gone for her. I think that's just part of the natural process, though, especially for perimeter players to figure it out. It gets a lot more physical. It's a lot more exhausting than your NCAA season. have to fly coach everywhere.
Well, she's also already getting the superstar treatment like halfway through her first season. Like in the Dream games they played against the Sky, she's had pretty poor games because they've had Kalia Copper guarding her the whole time, and they've just like tried to not have her get the ball. So it's really it's a compliment to her that she's struggling, because suddenly all of the defensive attention is going to her based on how well she's playing. And And so she's also partly just needs her teammates to step up in that absence.
Yeah, she needs somebody to draw attention away from her. So, and then, yeah, it seems it's probably looking at a huge improvement if that happens. Hopefully they can make that. Yeah, as you were saying, it is the roster's wide open for next year. They barely have anybody signed.
Yeah, it is.
So they have a chance to remake this whole team, get people in who can shoot, be nice, and then we can see what we're looking at next year. All right, moving on down. Current number 8 seed is the Los Angeles Sparks at 10-14, half a game back behind Atlanta and Dallas. The advanced stats do not love the Sparks so much. Among all of these teams, they actually, the 6 we're discussing, actually have the worst net rating. They are 9th in offense and they are 11th in defense. They're at a negative 6.9 net rating, worst among these teams. And that feels accurate to me, despite having somebody who's having an MVP caliber season in Neko. That the rest of this team still doesn't fit, especially in the backcourt, with Kennedy kind of not improving to what we thought she was capable. The Jordan Canada does not work as this team's point guard. A Jordan Canada, Brittany Sykes backcourt is just practically just begging for other teams to pack it in and dare them to shoot. They've had some good, surprising performances. Lexi Brown has shot well, played well. Katie Lou Samuelson is probably having a career year for her. She's playing really well. Liz has been off and on offensively. Some games she's great, some games she's not. And defensively, she's been a train wreck. And it's really, I know part of that was conditioning early in the year, and part of it is they just don't know how to construct a defense around her. It's very possible. You can witness the Aces in 2019 and 2021. They had a great defense, mostly surrounded by using Liz Cambage's size and her rangy ability. The Sparks, despite having a past with great defensive teams, just was never able to put that together this year. They had the talent, but they never did it. This team is awful defensively. It really needs to not be awful defensively for them to succeed. Looking forward at the remaining schedule, they have a 467 schedule. That is the second lowest of the remaining teams. So that's a plus for them in terms of what they're looking. But I think this team is bad, and I think they're going to struggle. They have 2 games remaining against Connecticut. They have 1 against the Aces against good teams. And the rest is 1 game against the Fever. And the rest is against this remaining Morass. I think they were the worst of these 6 teams. So the net rating thing did not surprise me at all. I know Nneka was out, I think, with the most recent game. Was she? I don't know if she's expected to be out for a while or much longer or whatever, but I don't really have a lot of faith in this team. I think they're going to miss the playoffs. Your thoughts, MJ? What do you thinking about the Los Angeles Sparks?
To go basically through a training camp with Derek Fisher, then all of a sudden go through a coaching change. And then who knows if he was like a Derek Fisher disciple or if he's someone that has his own like philosophy. So you have to adjust your game on the fly, basically, and I think that they could potentially make a run. Like they have some points here and there that make it look good, but then it's just like at the end of the day, it's just like, not really. But I think, give it another 2 games since we're closing in on like the last 10 games left for everybody. And I'll just give them that benefit of the doubt because it seems like some teams, at least over the last season or 2, they make a huge like run towards the last 10 games and put themselves right at the bottom of the playoffs and just be like, hey, we're here. So I give them that opportunity, but with them just, what is this? Opponent points per game, 11th of 12th. Like,
yeah.
And 7th of 12 points per game for themselves. Like, but what's this pace? They have the 3rd pace of 12. So I don't know. It's hard to dictate because they have not had a steady coaching path. It's one thing to say, okay, well, we've seen this throughout 12 games or 10 games, I'm sorry. And we've seen this throughout 20 games, because usually, well, in the WNBA, I would say improvement should take place around 15 games. Like the halfway mark or just a little before the halfway mark, you should see improvement. They're like breaking even across the court or across the board. I'm sorry. And there's really, I mean, maybe my highlight later that I'm going to talk about. But, and of course, NECA. Like she's, like you said, she's an MVP candidate. So outside of that, there's no stability really with the entire team. And I don't know, maybe they need to go place a phone call to because what are they missing to you? What are they missing to you guys?
They're missing, for me, they're missing a point guard. They need somebody who can, well, they need that extra bit of outside shooting, but yeah, they need somebody who can run a pick and roll and is actually a threat to shoot themselves. This sounds terrible. To make a basket, from distance. That's not Christy Tolliver at this point anymore. She's just not that player. She doesn't have the off the bounce ability anymore. It's not Jordan Canada. It's not Brittany Sykes. I don't know who it is. It's not on the roster. That's the biggest thing. So
I feel like if Christy was there the entire time, instead of being with the Mavericks, that's 2 games that they win, 2 games more that they win. Not that that's a huge difference, but I just feel like,
well, it would be in this case, right? But yeah, it might make the
Yeah.
difference between making and missing the playoffs. They are 5-5 over their last 10, which really kind of surprised me. And I'm looking back to see who they actually beat. It was like the Mercury, they had the Liberty, and then they actually beat the Wings on the road. That was the Wings during the Wings playing just absolutely terrible for a while there. So maybe it's just optics or something like that. But I just don't think this team is very good. They haven't struck me as very good. I think Fred Williams is even a more bewildering coach than Derek Fisher has been with the minutes and the way things have been just wildly up and down in everything with him.
I agree.
Yeah. What do you think, Becky?
To answer MJ's question, the biggest thing they're missing is the trade deadline because they can no longer
they missed it.
Yeah. I did hear that they were
Mabry.
I did hear that they made an inquiry about Skylar Diggins-Smith.
Yeah, I heard that too.
But I'm sure they just couldn't put together a package that was actually interesting to the Mercury. But I mean, they don't have their first round pick, so I think they should be doing everything they can to try to make the playoffs, because then it's just a wasted year.
That one's headed to the Mystics, if I remember right. Yeah, because you guys have the Mercury pick.
Yes.
Chicago has the Mercury pick, and the Mystics have the Sparks pick. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have put them at an 11th net rating based on their play. It hasn't always been good, but there's been bright spots, like you said. Having an MVP caliber player on your team certainly helps a lot. And as you mentioned, Lexi Brown is that shooter off the bench, though not always off the bench anymore. I don't even know.
Nope.
Yes. Yes, Lexi.
She finally got her ring, so her play is going to even jump ahead. But they seem to just still be in, like, I'm not sure if we have a settled starting lineup yet. Maybe we do.
Nope.
I just haven't watched them recently. But it feels like it's always completely different every time I see them of who's starting and what the plan is. So they have a lot of talent on that team. Being 11th in defensive rating really surprised me, given that last year they were one of the best defensive teams.
Yeah, that's the biggest one of the shocks to me, right?
And they didn't lose too many people that were making them one of the best defensive teams.
If you just look at it based on talent, they should be a good defensive team.
Yeah. So maybe that's something they can push for and turn that around. Because I think they are just going to be trying to gun as hard as they can for the playoffs, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah, true.
But yeah, their kind of big ticket acquisitions over the off season haven't really, turned the tide as much as I think they thought it would. Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
All right.
Let's talk about talking about mediocre teams. A lot of times it's like, well,
it's a great podcast idea.
Kind of badly. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, maybe it's just I look at this team and I just think of how they should be playing. It could be biased, but it really didn't surprise me when I looked up the net rating and I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are terrible. I was more surprised at the standings to see that they had 10 wins up to this point, and they were only 3 games under 500. All right, moving on, we have the Phoenix Mercury. Boy, has it been a season for them. They are 11-16. They are 1 game behind Atlanta and Dallas in the mediocre Morass standings. They have going forward. Oh wait, let me do the net rating and such. They have, or the stats. They are 6th in offensive rating. Kind of surprising given how much talent that they've missed. And they are 10th in defensive rating, and that is not surprising at all. Overall, a net rating of -3.0, which would be 3rd among these 6 teams. They have, okay, well, I guess NECA is the best player among these teams. Well, maybe not. I think Skylar has had an incredible year for them. I said on Twitter, I've watched since 2018, and I've watched a lot of the League Pass era from 2015 on down. I don't think I've ever seen a perimeter player account for as much of a team's value. You know, and obviously what we're saying here is, you know, they're not a great team, but nevertheless, I don't think I've ever seen a perimeter player be as responsible for a team's success such as it is than Skylar has been for this Mercury team. They'd be dead in the water. Like, they would be so bad without her. They would not be in the mediocre Morass. They'd be closer to the Fever than they are closer to any of these teams if she wasn't on this team. It's not like they have bad players necessarily. They're all bad players or anything like that. They're players that have a specific utility, you know, that they're good at, and then, you know, obviously real weaknesses, because none of them are super duper all-stars anymore. And I say this pointing out that Diana is probably not one of their top 5 players when you factor in defense. I will clandestinely bring up the on-off ratings for her, but she has been absolutely god awful. The team has been god awful when she's on the court. When she has her not rare, but, you know, occasional good offensive games where she's really shooting well, then fine, you can leave her out there. When she's missing, she has to get off the court, because the team just absolutely starts to crater after that. There are some good players. I know we all hate Sophie Cunningham, but she's having a pretty good season and she plays her ass off. And they probably don't have any problems with her basketball ability as opposed to her personality. Diamond has been inconsistent, but she's also had her moments. The Shea Petty, really good player, and you can kind of see already we're grasping at straws a little bit. Brianna Turner would be a good more impactful defensive player if there were not so many leaks around her. It's been Skylar. Skylar is the offensive engine for this team, responsible for getting them even as high as they currently are in offense. She has improved her defense to the point where she's at least a little pesky, that she could still get run over and run around a little bit. She's not by any stretch a great defensive player, but she's being a pest. She is trying to go and to get turnovers and occasionally succeeding at doing that kind of thing. Just monstrously marvelous. Anytime that they're close or winning, she's at the forefront of it. So when you have a player that's that good, that impactful, able to control the game, probably has more than NECA is on the Sparks, because of her being a post player who doesn't necessarily initiate her own offense, but exists as part of an offense. That gives me a little more hope for them. I always tune into a Phoenix Mercury game. I always think they can find some way to get back in it, just because Skylar's so good and she could go off at any point. I may be wrong about that, and they could just as easily miss the playoffs. I'm sure Becky would love that. To get that lottery pick for next year. I hope they make it, because I do want to see Skylar in the playoffs more than anything else. So I'm a little bit positive on them, but at the same time, I could see them being leapfrogged by some other teams that might be lower on the list. Becky, what are your thoughts on the Phoenix Mercury?
I'm kind of surprised how positive you are about them.
Yeah.
I feel like their record is better than they have been as a team. They did get to face the Storm without Stewie a few times.
That's true.
Kind of buoying up their ratings, but they're 5-5 in the last 10 games.
I forgot to say one thing.
Uh-huh.
I think Tina Charles leaving is addition by subtraction.
I mean, they have played well.
Yeah. The defense is a lot better without her.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
I'm curious how long this little bump is going to last. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in this team. Skylar's great, but she can only do so much. And, Sophie Cunningham at the 4 has worked out okay so far, but I really just feel like people are going to start attacking her more. And she just fouls a lot and isn't always called all the time with it. But
she's learning from the best.
Yeah. Truly pretty wild what that team gets away with. So, and I've been a little concerned about Diamond this year. It doesn't feel like her headspace is totally like always in the game, or she's just being asked to do a lot. I think, and maybe it's just taking a toll on her because she's kind of the player that in their blowout games, of which there are many, she's the one that they just force to play 35 minutes, and that can't be great for your season-long success.
Yeah, I think just the way she had to come back weighed on her mentally as well, because it did seem to me like she would lose focus quite a bit during those seasons, which again, at the time when you're watching it, you're like, what's going on? And then when we figure it out, it makes sense. And it makes sense even from a mental standpoint, right? Because you're having to think about your body all the time in addition to what's going on the court. I don't feel like she's 100% back yet, but she's obviously made a lot of improvement over where she's been in the past couple of years. How about you, MJ? Give us your thoughts on the Mercury.
My thoughts on the Mercury are actually simple. And I just think that without BG, they've been imploding. And I think it's an emotional thing and it's out of their control, especially because they are the team that houses BG and they probably get the information firsthand. Who knows? But I'm quite sure, since they've been playing with her so long, that it affects them directly. Like, all right, okay, let me go practice. All right, let's go play this game. You know, and I think that BG is like is she the most dominant player in the game? To be honest,
probably was last year. Yeah, I would say so.
Like last year, she scared me. So I'm like, how are you going to stop her? So just I personally and honestly think just overall that it's BG. And I know that's like probably the cliche or the most popular answer, but it's the truth. So I just want to say free BG. She's been wrongfully accused and, know, all of that. Like, we need to move forward on that, but that's what's hurting that team. Like, we've never seen them unravel the way that we've seen them this year. And I think it has everything to do with BG. I do.
Yeah, and to build on that a bit, I think it also matters, and I've kind of thought about this, that obviously they did not know when they fired Sandy Brondello that this was what's going to be happening, right. But I imagine that it would have been smoother for the team and maybe better for them to support each other if it was Sandy Brondello still at the helm, as someone who coached them all and had a much closer relationship with them. Yeah. Vanessa Nygaard clearly doesn't have the faith of all of her players and maybe is not the best at the player relations piece, as we've
Seems
seen.
To be an understatement.
Which, she was thrown into like absolutely the most difficult first-year coaching position you could possibly have, right? And it's just kind of unfortunate all around. I think that coaching decision was made because you just imagine that it might have been easier on the group if they kind of had that stability in the coaching spot in a year where those soft skills from your coach matter even more than they ever have.
I remember back when the day that it was announced that when Brondello would not be returning, and earlier that day, Skylar let out "Welp," something. Didn't seem like she was very, very happy about it, and it also didn't seem like she was consulted at all about the change. And that just was kind of your first little warning sign that this may not have been the most ideal timing to make that decision, or at least not handling it the way that it should have been handled, because I don't know how you leave her out of that discussion. Yeah, anyway, and here we are with clown emojis and all sorts of other fun stuff. It's been really kind of a testy year for player-coach relations around the league. Moving on, number 10 in the standings at 9 and 15 are the New York Liberty. They are currently 10th in offensive rating. They are 9th in defensive rating. A lot of these teams are just like, kind of not great at any particular thing. They are at a negative 5.8 net rating, which would be fifth. Yeah, fifth among the discussed teams, ahead of the Sparks, behind everybody else. And this is a team that has, when I'm talking about teams that have for a stretch managed to play pretty well and kind of make you think that they're at least capable of doing much more than they have. And I think that they got derailed a little bit by injuries. Most of this playing well, by the way, occurred after that Nigel Laney went down. But Nigel Laney is maybe one of the things that worries me a little bit about them going forward. But they're clearly have not been playing well of late anyway. But Rebecca Allen came and went, has had a hard time. The playing well coincided with Sabrina just finding her hidden player controller settings and not turning up, turning down the difficulty on the WNBA and suddenly just going absolutely nuts. Natasha Howard, her resurgence occurred at the same time. Sabrina unlocking herself made it a lot easier for Natasha Howard. They're still missing, Willoughby. They're missing Laney. They've had generally a down year from Sammy Whitcomb. She's picked it up a little bit of late. Hanshu has been a revelation, one of those players we're going to talk about during the third act of our podcast. That's been it. Michaela Onyenwere, a little up, a little down. Just it's not a very talented team. I think when Sabrina's cooking, they are capable of playing well, beating good teams. And they just don't have anything else to fall back on for the remainder of the season. They have a remaining record of 513, which is the second highest. Oh, the Mercury, by the way, have the highest. So maybe I'm again, that's another reason why they may not do as well as I think they could conceivably do. But yeah, if Sabrina is doing well, they're doing well, but they also don't play defense. They have 7 out of their 12 remaining games are also on the road, which is another negative. So they're really looking at an uphill battle to make the playoffs this season. Let's see here. I don't see a lot of Connecticut and Washington. 2 games against Chicago. Yeah, their next 4 games is probably where their season will be decided. However they come out of that, if they come out of this with a 2-2 record, then that will be wonderful for them. If they come out with an 0-4 record, then that's probably the end of it, and they're going to have a huge uphill climb to get back into playoff consideration. MJ, what do we think about the Liberty?
What I think about the Liberty, I think that we're at that point that I said that they would be, depending on Sabrina, extra heavy. And I think that with them not having Nigel Laney, it's no chance.
Yeah,
because it's too much dependence on Sabrina. And who's been going off next to her? Marine Johannes.
Oh yeah, Marine Johannes. Yeah.
Woo, she's fire.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
And I love Hanshu, and I wish that she would have started and would start every game and would be available for every game, but maybe that's not realistic. But I think that those 3 could have made imprint and an impact together. Mm-hmm. But I think honestly, if I don't bite my tongue, I feel like The Liberty were actually trying to tank.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like they were like, well, let's get us one more because we're not going to beat Chicago. The Aces have more talent. Connecticut is still out there. Seattle is still out there. Like, who really believes that New York was going to win a championship anyway?
Oh no, they definitely not.
So it's just like, okay, well, let's just figure things out with what we have right now, gain our footing, kind of at least our footing going into next season. Like, have a game plan basically going into next season. Like, okay, we know what we can get from Sabrina. We know what we could get from XYZ, and we'll go from there. We'll build around that, but we're also going to take the best player available, more than likely. Like if they can get a Leah Boston, I'm sure they'll go for it. Like that, that'll immediately change their fortunes. So I just think that, you know, they were like, that's why they not stash, but that's why Sabali, you know, she was like, oh, I got this injury. So it was like, all right. And then who else did they draft? That was like
Sika Kone.
Yeah. And then they draft. Yeah. So it's just like, if they're not, you drafted them and they're not playing, that means you're still looking forward to the future. So I'm kind of looking at them like that right now. But Sabrina has been going crazy. And I didn't think that she would go this crazy. Like, I know I was talking about at the beginning that maybe it's not the best thing to rely on her like that, but maybe she's found something.
That's just the way it is. I mean, to the extent that she's been as good as she is, they kind of have to, right? You have to make use of it if it's
and
working
she's found
so well
to an extent where she can facilitate. Like I did not expect her getting like these assist numbers and facilitating the way that she gets. I was thinking it was just like, oh well, here goes the ball, do what you got to do. But she's been trying to make of it, you know, trying to utilize her teammates and everything. So I think she's basically like probably looked at it like, yeah, let me extend my career while they're trying to just drag me into the mud. Let me make sure everybody else is getting going. And, you know, she's been doing her thing and it's been a beautiful thing, but it still hasn't resulted in more wins because she just needs help.
Yep. How you feeling, Becky?
I was feeling like this team was on an upswing.
Yeah, they were for a bit. It felt like that.
Based on Sabrina's play, but then I looked at it and it's like over the last month, they're 9th in net rating as opposed to previously 10th in net rating. They won 4 of 10. So I was like, a little upswing.
Yeah.
Maybe not as up of a swing as
she said hoping. One up, just one up.
So I was actually a little surprised because I kind of thought of this team as better than maybe what the performance actually has been. And I agree that right now it's really rising and falling with Sabrina, and she put together big run of games there. But then you saw in the latest Aces game where, you know, she had a pretty bad game and wasn't hitting anything. And
Aces finally decided to start playing defense, and that made all the difference apparently.
Right.
And then it was kind of a rough one.
It was like, stop this now.
Yeah. So there's still, I think MJ, maybe they should tank. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they're built to tank.
Yeah. I kind of had the opposite reaction of you, MJ. I'm not surprised that she has high assist numbers because that was always her big skill in college. I was really surprised that the scoring numbers are what they are, but I think that's kind of what has needed to happen for this team to have any potential success. Is they don't have the players who can space the floor and run plays. So she needs to take on that scoring load a lot. I don't think that's her ideal style of play though. I don't think she's going to be the one who's getting 27 points, you know, trying to hit 30 points often. Among the triple double, by the way, historically, I think she has the 2 highest scoring triple doubles in terms of points, which is kind of interesting to know.
Yeah.
She's played phenomenal. I think currently I'd put her in as an all WNBA player, both her and Skylar amongst these teams that we're talking about.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
All right. Anyway, moving on, we move further down the standings to the Minnesota Lynx, currently 10 and 17. They are 2 games behind Atlanta and Dallas. They have, why does this always run away from me? They are 4th in offensive rating, which is kind of startling. They are 8th in defensive rating. They're negative 1.1, which is the second best of the 6 teams, right behind the Dallas Wings. Negative 1.1 per 100 possessions. Pretty good considering how they started. And they've probably, among all these teams, put together the best stretch of games where they actually look like a really good team for quite a bit. Mariah Jefferson has been a revelation. She's one of those players we'll get to in the third part of this.
Not lately.
Yeah, she's had a few bad games, but I think overall she's been, for Minnesota, she's been of near all-star quality. She's played a lot of really good games for them. Yeah, of late she's really struggled. I see when I look over at the stats that she's put up, hasn't hit double figures in quite a while. But while she was playing well, and it coincided with how the team was playing, that was exactly what they needed, just to get everybody healthy and to have an actual point guard who can initiate offense, which we've already kind of discussed is exactly what the Sparks have been missing. I believe she's going to be in UFA at the end of the season. She's probably has earned herself quite a bit of money this year, just based on how she's played in Minnesota, with the understanding that she needs to have the ball in her hands to be successful, like a lot of point guards. Jessica Shepard, big, a season. I think nobody quite anticipated it to the extent that it's been, but she's really great player. Sil has slowed down a little bit since her hot start. She started up in the kind of MVP caliber range and has cooled off a little bit, but that's okay. Kayla, kind of a down season for her so far for this team. The shooting has not been where it can be. Aerial Powers has had one of the more interesting seasons. She started off terrible, and then for a few games over the past month, she even won a Player of the Week. She just all of a sudden just turned into Cynthia Cooper light.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Just going nuts, getting to the line all the time, barking and nearly starting fights, pushing players, not the players she intended to push. Just
bleeding.
Highly entertaining is what I'll say. If they can, this is a team that, like, they kind of show what they're capable of, and then of late they've fallen back again. They've started dropping games that they probably should not be dropping if they were a good team. So I don't know. They're also a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of where they are currently in the standings, being the last amongst these teams that we're talking about. And then the other thing is they have the remaining schedule is pretty rough. 2 games against Connecticut, game against Seattle, 2 games against Seattle, 3 games against Connecticut. That right there will tell you the whole story. Is most of their games are actually against good teams. So they really need to play the best of their ability, like they had been during their good stretch. It needs to happen, or else they're definitely not making the playoffs. They'd be interesting if they snuck in, because I think they'd be that lower seed that you don't really want to face. They have solid players all over the place, and they just didn't have a point guard for a while. But you can see this group of players putting together good games, if at least being capable of it. I don't know if they're going to do it. Let's start with you, Becky. How you feeling about the Minnesota Lynx?
Yeah, the Lynx are definitely my nightmare scenario if they get to be the 8th seed.
Right.
And then if the Sky are still the 1 seed, like, I don't like that. I'm not a fan.
I from the potential second seed, I firmly agree with you. This is a team that I think has kind of had our number a bit this year.
Yeah. I mean, particularly if they put together a run that gets them to the 8th seed, and then you have to play them as the 8th seed, they'll be pretty good. And they're like the New York Liberty. I was like, the Lynx are on an upswing, and the Lynx are actually on an upswing statistically, that they're 3rd in net rating over the last month.
Yes.
As we mentioned, a lot of that is about Aerial Powers just kind of went nuts for a while there. I question how sustainable that is. I think she's a player that she's one of those players that can have really big games, but is also prone to some, like, wild turnovers too. That's how we beat the Lynx last year in the playoffs. Is Laisha was out, and it ended up with Aerial Powers in the ball with the ball in her hands the entire time, and she just couldn't efficiently run the game, and so it's just a lot of Aerial Powers, but a lot of her missing. So I worry about the sustainability of that run. But they figured out a bit the point guard spot, which was the big concern, and they have Cheryl Reeve, who I think is one of the greatest coaches in the world. So
shout out Cheryl
and they
Reeve.
also have, I looked a little bit at tiebreakers. They have the tiebreaker against Phoenix. They have the tiebreaker against New York, and they're they're tied with Dallas and with Los Angeles. So the other ones are all up in the air.
Becky's still in my shine right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like to say it again?
No. Keep going. It just
MJ
adds to it.
MJ, you got to come quick or don't come at all. That's how it works.
No, adds to it. Keep adding to it because it's just gonna make it even sweeter.
Nope, that's all I have on the tiebreakers, but that puts them in a good position. They're the team with the most tiebreakers already locked in against the remaining teams, so that could push them right over the edge.
No, I didn't even know that. I didn't look that up that far, but
that's it. Stats queen.
You ready for me now?
Go for it.
Okay, so I have more notes for the Minnesota Lynx than I have for anybody that I have mentioned here combined. Okay. Now, I did put inconsistency first, but I also said Aerial Powers is turning into Sabrina Ionescu.
Okay.
They brought in Mo Jeff late.
Yeah.
It's no Odyssey Sims, no Andrew McCautry, which is who they actually, in my opinion, kind of hung their hat on as like being somebody to lean on. And they actually might have set themselves up for a quiet tank, but they do have Sylvia Fowles and Jessica Shepard, as mentioned. They've had zero roster stability because they've been here, come sign here. Okay, all right, bye. Okay, here, come here. Okay. Now you starting. Okay, now you're not. Now you.
They have the rotation now. I mean, we know what their rotation
and they have it now. And the thing that I was gonna say at the end, which Becky has opened the door. She kicked the door in, waving a 4-4 like Biggie. Is that they could actually surprisingly go over the Liberty, the Mercury, the Sparks, and the Wings. If they go on a run, which I think they're capable of, because I'm just looking at Aerial Powers and it's just like, what's going on with you? Are you turning into a superhero? So I think they are capable, especially with Sylvia there. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking up and suddenly they go from the team that's at the bottom of this list to the team that's potentially right under Atlanta. If Atlanta can continue their trend, they could, everybody else has to go through a pitfall, but I can really see the Lynx being right there. Like they're in the mix for sure. They might be at the bottom, but they're in the mix. And it all hinges on the health of Ariel. It all hinges on the health of Seal. Like as long as they're fine, this can go good because they've been plugging and playing along the way, here and there, making it work. Because what do we think of them at the beginning of the season? Like, yeah, trash. Y'all just going to the lottery. Okay, just go to the lottery and cash our ticket, right?
Yeah, they dug themselves quite a hole, and it still may be too much of a hole to pull themselves out of. Just looking at the remaining schedule, so I might have been right about that.
I'm gonna just say they're gonna make the playoffs. I'm gonna put a bet on that. Yeah.
All right, that's fair. That's it. Do we all agree that Atlanta and Dallas are gonna make it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who is your third team? So Becky, who is your third team?
I think I finally ended on the New York Liberty, but I had multiple different teams in that spot.
All right, and MJ, you think it's going to be the Lynx?
Third team, yeah. I mean, I want to kind of go with the Sparks because of who I'm gonna mention after this segment, but
because just for your love of Lexi Brown.
How does he know? How do you know?
Because you never stop talking about her. That's how I know.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the Lynx though.
All right. Yeah, I feel better after we've all talked about it. I think I even feel better about the Mercury making that final spot. I would not be mad if the Lynx made it though. or the Liberty for that matter, just because they would be entertaining. But I'm a Skylar believer. I do think that they have a good 5.5 players that I kind of like. Just in terms of their ability to put something together. It may not be enough, and I can see how it could definitely not be enough, and I may just be totally missing the boat on the Sparks, who I just think are generally really bad, and they have a bad coach right now. Yeah, that's it. Let's move on to third section here, emptying the bench. We're going to be talking about players that have surprised us this year in positive and negative ways. And I'm going to kick this off just because I want to talk about two right off the bat. Both play for my team. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that they've been good. I'm just surprised to the extent that they've been good. I was hoping that Kelsey Plum would make the all WNBA team. Now it seems to me like it's a freaking lock. And she has a case as the best. I still think it's Skylar, but she has a case for being the best perimeter player this season. She's just absolutely been phenomenal, especially over the last few games. Like she doesn't get just the season has not worn on her at all. And she's been such a huge part of the offense. She can do things that nobody else can do. She's Kelsey Plum, but she has been like Kelsey Plum, just uber. Sacrificed a bit of defense to get there. She's definitely exerting a lot of her effort on the offensive end, but just what she's been capable of doing with her frame and everything, really marvelous to see. The other player is Jackie Young. I figured she would get better. I did not anticipate the shooting just skyrocketing the way that it has. The steady amount of scoring, especially opening the season, the knee or whatever it was, the ankle injury, whatever she had, derailed her a little bit, and I think it kind of threw her thing off course. But it's also a sign of, if she stays healthy, what she's capable of. The first 11 games of the season, her low in points, second lowest in points, was 19 points. Everything after 113 game outing was 19 points or more. Just nuts to think about. She's slowed down a little bit, but she still has come up with games 23, 24, 23 points. All extremely solid shooting, getting to the line, and then on top of that, the newfound 3-point stroke, which she is looks super duper confident about. Her vision has increased. The passing vision has increased. Next up for her is playmaking. If she gets that, she is going to be a all WNBA candidate every year. I think she's in that this year as well. And there's a lot of surprises. Other just like, wow, I didn't foresee this type of player playing the way that they have. Hanshu, probably number one on that list. Just she's turned into a wonderful post player. It's really, really cool to see. And then if we're looking at the opposite end for players that have kind of surprised me that they haven't been as effective as I thought they would, the one that just constantly comes to mind is Jewel Lloyd, who just seems to be having a real hard time this year. And I don't know what accounts for it. Maybe she's nursing an injury we don't know about or something, but not the dynamic two-way player that we've gotten used to over the past several years. So I hope it's a temporary thing and she will be back up to 100%. Those who are immediately come to mind, there's a whole bunch of other names that I could mention. I think Moriah Jefferson has been wonderful. I think Gabby, the way that she's integrated into the Seattle offense has been very, very cool. And it's not something that I necessarily saw coming. A lot of like surprising names, Jessica Shepard, et cetera, et cetera. So, but that's who I got. MJ, let's move on to you. Who are your surprises of the year?
I like the Gabby pick. You already know I'm biased.
Yeah. Okay. So Lexi, and then all right.
So y'all want to hear this? Y'all want to hear this rundown about Lexi Brown?
Go for it, because we should send it to her after you're done.
44% from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
44. She's a good defender.
Oh yeah.
And to me, I would like truly nominate her if, I know we made our picks for who we think is gonna eke into the playoffs. But if the Sparks make the playoffs, then I'm gonna be more biased. So and then there's more bias because she was traded on my daughter's birthday in 19 back to Minnesota from Connecticut. She was, of course, everyone was drafted on my daughter's birthday in 18 when she was drafted. But, that's whatever.
It's a special day.
Yeah, it's a special day to me. And I just feel like, based upon what I've seen, what I've heard from other players, the body language that I've seen, that she's actually on that Sparks roster, she's silently kind of respected as like I don't think she knows it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's too humble to realize it. But based upon her movement through the league and then her ability to persevere and keep working, because of what she went through, just the roster instability, not having a guaranteed contract and everything, and then for her to be able to get on Chicago, get off Chicago, get back on Chicago. Like, I remember watching her Twitter and just pretty much watching her period, like during the Chicago time, because it was like she came to Chicago, she was talking about, I've been working out, I've been doing this and that, coming from Minnesota. And then it was just like, oh, Chicago dropped her. And then during the year, I'm like, why y'all drop Lexi? Why did y'all drop Lexi? They brought her back. She won a championship. Now look at her. So it's a little bit more personal to me because I follow her a little bit more closely, because at the time I was like still kind of scanning the Lynx a little bit besides Dallas. Like, Dallas was like my home connection because they came from Detroit to Tulsa to whatever, wherever they want to be right now. And Lexi went from the Lynx, which was like my favorite, like once, a lot of stuff did dissolve this way, and coming from my love for Maya. So I paid attention to the Lynx a lot as well. And then to see them acquire Lexi and then to see her journey is like, I kind of hold a bias. It is what it is. And I hope you couldn't hear that. My computer talking about. Anyway,
revealing your secrets.
Yeah, virus and protection.
Okay,
but yeah, like she holds a place because I watched her journey. She was one of the players that I paid attention to, and to see where she is now with her shooting and her defense, even though she has had some games where it's just like, okay, she only put up X amount of points or whatever, but she's still been productive, where I think that if the Sparks had a little bit more going for themselves, like I forgot which one of you guys mentioned it, but if they had a point guard, and which is why I actually said, I don't know if you guys remember, just throw Lexi at point guard and just see what happened.
They've tried that before, not the Los Angeles, but
I mean steadily, just put it on her.
Even Lexi says she's not a point guard.
But
I don't think she's a point guard. She's just not a pick and roll player. She's a shooter.
She's not, but I don't know. I'm biased, and
she's going to earn a fair amount of money with the way she played this year. Just as a defensive wing who can shoot,
and that's her goal. Like, she wants to get a guaranteed contract, and I'm seeing that. Like, after what she's done this season, I'm seeing a guaranteed contract in her forecast. And it's just because I've been following her journey. Like, if I wasn't following Lexi, I wouldn't have this pick, but I've been following Lexi for a while. So I just want to see her prosper, and just what she adds to the Sparks. Like, if they can get over the hump and make it to the playoffs, I would borderline nominate Lexi for, sixth player of the year. I really would.
You're gonna have a hard time.
Shooting.
You're gonna have a hard time getting it over Brianna, though.
Yeah. I agree with that.
All right. Anyone else for surprises? Positive, negative?
Coco.
Okay, Becky.
Oh, yes. I guess I've kind of categorized mine into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
And I just have three.
Okay.
There's a lot that.
So wait, three good, three bad, and three ugly, or one of each?
one good, one bad, one ugly.
Okay, all right.
So the good, and obviously this is a super homer thing, but Courtney Vandersloot has surprised in a really exciting way, I think, in that earlier in her career, and particularly after the Hamby heave, she really had a reputation as a player that was not good in clutch moments, that made mistaken clutch moments.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even aware of that, but all right.
I guess I'm just stay on top of the discourse around Courtney Vandersloot, but it felt like, particularly after the Hamby heave, where there's like this awful turnover, and she's, the ball's in her hand all the time. She turns it over a fair amount. I think she kind of had this reputation of not being a very clutch player, and then turn it around to this year. They have made Queen of the Fourth t-shirts. She's had two buzzer beater threes, and her stats are like she's statistically better in the fourth quarter now than the rest of the game. And I think that's a really fun little narrative swing for her that's been very exciting to watch.
Do you think this has been mostly like in part because it's kind of what the team has needed a little bit, with Allie not being what she's been over the past few years, that they basically needed somebody to be able to come in and take those clutch shots when you need it? It's kind of harder for a player like Candace or somebody else to work and do that off the dribble. And she seems to be, Courtney would seem to be the best off the dribble option, I would think.
I mean, I do think, I know one of her buzzer beaters was on a broken play.
Yeah. They were back to back too, weren't they? If I remember right.
Not back to back.
Okay.
I don't think, but it was, within a short time frame. And I think even though Allie has struggled shooting, I did not see the Sky like stop drawing up plays where Allie would try to go for a three, because it was going to come around, right? And it did. But I do think that she has gotten more, and this is over recent years, it's just kind of really the big buzzer beaters have happened this year, that she's gotten to be more aggressive offensively in clutch time moments, and has kind of stepped up as like, someone needs to score, I'm gonna drive to the rim, I'm gonna make sure this happens.
Right.
So I think it's narratively, it felt like a flip had been switched a bit, but I think this has been building, and she's just a really good player, and it's all coming to fruition. So that's been a good surprise for me. A bad surprise is we've been talking a lot about, players retiring, how should they get their flowers? And I would like to talk about a player who just made the W25 team last year, former Rookie of the Year, 6-time All WNBA selection, 5-time All-Star, 7-time All Defensive Team, peak performer in the league for scoring 2 years in a row. Angel McCoughtry is now, it seems, out of the league, and maybe permanently out of the league. And I don't know if she is officially retired.
No,
but
she says she phrased it as she thinks she would be able to come back this season if somebody wanted her.
Okay.
So she's definitely not retired.
She's available, but she's not being paid.
But yeah, nobody's knocking right now.
Yeah. And to me, I guess, she hasn't retired, but to me, just like watching a player of that caliber potentially fall out of the league with just nothing, just
like no fanfare, right? Yep.
It's been really bad to see, and a big disappointment for me. I know when we did our top 25 teams, I put her up there. I just, maybe I'm a little swayed by, I just love her personality. I'm just a huge Angel McCoughtry fan, that I think it's just such a bummer. She's one of those players like Candace Dupree and like Ty Young, and, Simone Augustus even kind of went out where she went from training camp to the coaching staff, where it seems like if you don't announce your retirement, that the league's pretty cutthroat, and just, okay, you're out.
Yep.
No, we don't. And
Agreed.
then suddenly those players are just gone. And, I've been very bummed out to watch it happen to Angel McCoughtry this year, as it has happened to other, superstars of this league before. So that's my bad. And then the ugly is, I guess I'm just picking up on recent narratives, but oh boy, Diana Taurasi is just fouling everyone. She's going out. Speaking of like some superstars being pushed out of the league, Diana still gets her starting spot and is just like knocking everyone over. And I think it's gotten pretty ugly over there. And this was true last year too, in the playoffs. You could just watch the Sky players throw their hands up in the air like, why is she still pushing me? Like, why is this allowed? But this year she's seems to be even more reckless.
She did finally get a penalty for the Sylvia Fowles kick.
Yeah, which was strange because I don't know if the league ever announced it. Like, it was like a sources say, like,
yeah, that was
say.
You're right. You're right about that. Yeah, definitely.
And I know Cheryl Reeve talked about it on her podcast as well. That got attention, but that I think has surprised me in that the fouls have gotten even uglier this year, and have just they're just kind of happening. And I guess people are talking about it, but besides getting a later assessed flagrant 2, there hasn't been much consequences for it. So that's my good, the bad, and the ugly.
The Taurasi thing is really, really interesting to me. I think under any other normal circumstances, a team would be tell her after this season, thanks, but no thanks. Even though she's putting up decent offensive numbers, she's it's a negative 6.4 when she's on the court and 7.6 when she's off. And you have to watch her play to see, you just have to watch Phoenix play and pay attention to how other teams attack the Mercury to see why that is. Nobody's afraid of her on defense. They will always attack that side of the court that's on, even if they're not specifically going against her, because they know she's not going to help. She's going to sit there, potentially foul you, maybe not get a call out of it. The fact that nobody even looked at that, none of the 3 refs wanted to look at that whole Minnesota sequence was infuriating. Just really absolutely ridiculous that they didn't even bother to take a replay. And I don't know that would have happened with any other player. And it just seems so ridiculous after the fact.
Yeah,
but
it's notable too, when she does her hard fouls, she then complains about not getting the foul call. So it's
Yes.
like also like she is meanwhile barking at the refs the whole time. Her entire strategy now seems to be she can still hit long threes, which
no, after that
skill,
sequence where she
yeah.
went and she did the kick and everything else, she turned around. She had a perfect chance to get the offensive rebound. She turned around to start arguing with the ref because she wasn't immediately called for a foul, and then Minnesota got the rebound. So it was just the perfect Diana encapsulation of the way things are right now. Yeah, I don't think any other team, like if she was, somebody who had just come along onto a team and she wasn't a legend for that team, I don't think that they would be like, maybe not having you back this year. But Phoenix seems, they're gonna give her the Kobe treatment. She is going to always be a big part of it. No matter how bad she plays, they're going to just ride her to the end. Doesn't matter what other players that are on there. Certainly doesn't matter that Skylar.
You hitting right now, radio.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't seem to matter. They're just going to be like, we're ride or die with Diana all the way to the end. And maybe that pays off in terms of like promotion and everything else that happens after her career is finally over, that they don't want to upset that. And maybe there are things with the way that Griner feels about her. I know her and Griner are big friends, and they don't want to mess that up. So it could be for an entirely good reason. But at the same time, if you're watching it, especially if I was like a Phoenix fan, I would be absolutely livid at the way that they're just carrying on with her. But
I was kind of looking at it in that light too. Like, Diana is like the icon of the franchise, and it's funny you mentioned Kobe, because I was thinking like
those last few years. That's exactly what I was thinking about it. Is that the last few playing years he was terrible, and they were just like, don't care. And he gets whatever he wants.
And that's where I come in. Like, where if Kobe was still alive, he would have been like, Diana, you might need to retire. He might have told her that. I think he would have. Said, like, it's
would
time
surprise
to go ahead
me. He would show her the Dear Basketball
ugly.
a short film. He said, how about maybe you want to start crafting your own Dear Basketball. Yeah, I'm sure they don't want her playing like as a sixth woman for some other team or something like that. So it's just going to be what it is. And Skylar's pissed, and she's probably going to leave this offseason, and that's what it's costing them. So
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that is definitely the ugly. It was pretty good. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It was a nice framing reference.
I like that.
Yeah. Anyway, that has been it. This has been your 6th pod of the year for the week of July 20th is when the episode comes out. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. We love to hear from you. Let us know what you think. We have a whole Lead SM podcast network with NBA stuff that you may want to listen to, watch, read articles, all that stuff.
All of the crazy narratives that's going on right now. Definitely.
Everybody's mad about something. So go ahead and partake of that. And we will see you next week on behalf of MJ Tolliver, Becky Robococo. I am Snap Wilson. And in the immortal words of somebody, peace out.
Peace out.
Goodbye.